bottom here. It's a bit cloudy again now, but I mean, I'm no biologist.
No, there's definitely a lot of crabby.
You see this?
Crabby patties.
Hey everybody, good afternoon from RV Falcor 2. I'd like to welcome you all to dive 704. We are still in Reloncavi Fjord, but we've moved a little bit farther up north to the intermediate section of a sandy basin that we have just settled down upon to sample. Really amazing to see you guys back in the chat. Welcome aboard. We've had a little bit of a break in between dives, but it's been super busy up here on the ship. The science team was really busy frantically processing all of the samples and cores from the last dive. So it's been a little bit frantic and busy, but we're excited to be back down here for a little bit this evening to collect more cores, which is what you're going to be seeing. And with me here in the mission control room, a lot of people are at dinner right now, but we've got Zach and Scott as our pilots. Also behind me, I've got lead tech John Fulmer. Whoop whoop. And we've got Dr. Sebastian Watt, our PI, as the watch lead. I'll have him introduce himself in just a minute. And we've got a really amazing international and interdisciplinary team with us here in the mission control room. So if you have any questions.
Welcome to everyone watching this second dive of the day. Really exciting to be down on the seabed again. This is our first day of ROV operations. Wasn't too sure whether we'd be able to fit in more than one dive in a day, so this is really excellent. First dive took a few hours earlier. We've just transited south down the Reloncavi Fjord in southern Chile into the central part of the fjord. So we're a little bit more out towards the open sea than we were at the first site. And we're in a distinct basin of the fjord. So in this project, we're in of volcanic eruptions in southern Chile on the marine environment. And we're expecting those impacts to be linked to deposition of volcanic sediments into the marine system following explosive volcanic eruptions. Later in the cruise, we'll be studying an eruption at a volcano called Chaiten in 2008, which inundated the marine system with a huge volume of sediment. We don't know how far that sediment was dispersed. We don't know how thick it was, and these are things we're going to be finding out, but it will have represented a major disturbance to the marine environment. Right now in the Reloncavi Fjord, we're a little bit further north in southern Chile, and the Reloncavi Fjord is fed from a volcano, or fed by a river from a volcano called Calbuco, which erupted in 2015. So earlier in the day, we were nearer to that sediment source from Calbuco volcano. Now we're a bit further away, so we'll expect maybe slightly less influence from the volcano, maybe more fluvial, so river-derived sediment influences. So a distinct signature on the seabed from this volcanic event. So we're just on the bottom now, waiting for things to clear a bit. We've just been taking some water samples from the lowermost part of the water column, and then we'll be moving on to collecting sediment samples with some coring.
Okay, now we're ready to fire the second Niskin, which will be Niskin 3.
Okay.
Okay.
Seb, to tell you.
Yeah, so
Is that the last one?
not necessarily the last one, we'll find 3, and then do you want to wait more minutes? Or are you happy to just take this second one? Just this one, yeah. So we'll fire Niskin 3, please.
In that case, can I finish them off? Just to test them all?
Do you want to save one?
Fire one on the way up.
Yeah, can we save one, Zach, to fire on the way up, but test the others if you want? Yeah.
Let's save one.
Maybe save 2 just in case. We've got 3 and 4 in case it's a misfire, and then on the way up we have 5 and 6.
So Jacob, we fired 3 there, bottom water sample, after waiting for it to clear for a few minutes, for 5 minutes.
Zach, you fired 4 already, right?
Yep. So we've got 5 and 6 left. Okay.
So Zach, it's pretty poor visibility here for the push coring. It was clearer when we landed. What do you think is causing this?
I think it's just there's not
Visibility.
much current, so it's just kind of
It's
hanging
just
out.
we're just
from
waiting for it to
the wind.
disperse.
So we could move,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there's no guarantee it would.
No, okay. Let's just wait a couple of minutes, see if things clear up.
I think we see enough to do a push core if you want.
Yeah?
We could go ahead and get it
Let's-
out.
let's have a go.
Manual, not a vibrocore, right?
Yeah, so the push cores first. We want to do at least 2 push cores first. So if we can start with
Yeah, you can start. You can see the bottom now starting to come in.
yeah, okay. Right, so we'll start with push core number 1.
Little anemones. Anemones.
Yes. They're urchins, I think.
Oh, out of yeah, dive.
So Palena, it looks like there's lots of sea urchins on the bottom. Echinoids. On the bottom there are echinoids on the seabed. Seabed. Can you
If I
see?
can look, please.
Yeah, did you see when we zoom in? All these animals on the bottom? Yeah, have you logged them?
Yes.
Yeah. Right, so you can see the grab arm now going towards the first push core. We got a rack of 6 here, and these are designed to take up to about 30 centimetres of sediment from the seabed. The seabed sediment we found this morning was extremely loose, soft mud. These went in very easily, these push cores, but the sediment does get compressed when we push these in. And some challenges with the sediment also slipping out potentially on the way down, so it's a sort of operation that requires a lot of steadiness. So we'll see if this is any different in terms of how easily these go in. It looks like it's going in again very, very easily. So that's held a bit better, Becky, than
Yeah,
this
it's
morning.
done a lot better.
Yeah, and that's really part of the reason for getting these push cores, is to preserve that very shallowest soft sediment. Because when we take the longer cores with the vibrocore, that becomes disturbed and is easily lost.
Let's see, I'll try to pull some of that out of there, get you a better view of the, give me 1 second. Fish inspection. Okay. There you go. Bubbles that. Good view in the sit, good view.
Well, I'm not sure if we're going to do scoop biology session.
No biology, but art.
Yeah, so we'll take 3. If this is working well, we'll take 3 push
Are
cores.
you
Agree.
gonna go? It's at a bad angle though. There you go. There you go.
Yeah, I think it has to do with the sun being a little bit more cohesive.
I think we saw some mud volcanoes.
Really?
On our way down.
Ah. Could you see like gas in the
Because the gas, then it sits there. I'll show you.
Okay.
It's just in the.
I think
But the fjord
the
goes.
reason why that core was much better is because I put that core together.
structural control.
And there's a volcano.
You can't think of any other reason.
It's science, we gotta look
Yeah,
at
yeah,
every
yeah.
possible.
Exactly.
possible.
Yeah. No, that seems reasonable to me.
With some submarines.
There's a lot living on the bottom here compared to earlier.
Very strange.
All these, you see all these sea urchins on the bottom here.
Yeah. Columbia
there's two. I mean, there's
There-
organisms here. There's the reds.
There's the red, which might be sea anemones.
I think they're
You think those are
I
echinoids?
think so, yeah. But they could be an
Maybe we'll
eminence.
can we try to capture one?
Um,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I agree.
Want to go on one of those?
Those are
And then
echinoids.
there's yeah.
Grab one of those.
If you
Okay.
wanna grab one of those.
Let's get one for the biology team.
Right here?
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're small.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
tiny. And then what's sort of blue coloration?
But there's a second organism. There's a greyish.
Yeah, the greyish.
Unless there's a sort of bioobservation, but there's something else. Nice.
Nice.
So we got another push core that
Oh
looks
my god, if it stayed, okay.
looks like it went in very easily. And again, we're seeing the
You got it.
same sort of brownish top at the seabed interface with all this biology, and then into the grey sediment underneath. And we've just been working on the push cores from the previous dive. This was sort of dark, organic rich, pretty sticky, fine sediment.
Woo!
Should
So
I blast
that's-
everybody's ears? I'm very excited.
So a third one, I think.
Let's do a third
Love that
one.
money.
So we've got two compressors on it for any spikes. So you're good.
Oh, okay, good. You have a couple questions in the chat about how the fjord relates to the overall project and the geology.
Third one?
center.
Yes, so I got a question on the fjord. Yeah, no, so we're actually just in the Reloncavi Fjord really for the first couple of days of the expedition. Our main focus will be offshore the Chaiten volcano, which is further south. It's still in the sort of inland waters of Chile. So the Reloncavi Fjord is a sort of complementary data set to what we'll be studying for the remainder of the expedition.
Those right there?
So we'll be, for the remainder of the expedition, studying the Chaiten 2008 eruption and its impacts. But in the Reloncavi Fjord, we're looking at the impacts of the Calbuco 2015 eruption. Another explosive eruption, generating a lot of ash, lots of fine volcanic sediment, which then travelled into the fjord through river systems. But not as less sediment. We'd expect lower impacts on the marine environment. So actually we'll be moving out of the fjord at the end of this dive. After we've done some more mapping tonight, we'll then be moving out of the fjord and moving south through the Gulf of Ancud and down towards Chaiten. So the push cores have gone really smoothly here. We've already got the third one just coming on to the ROV. Excellent. Right, so that's really smooth. I think we may have time for some biology samples depending on vibrocoring, but I think we moved to vibrocoring, and then if we wanted more biology, we could move slightly and do that as well. Yeah, I mean, I think anything. Yeah, it'd be good to chat to Diego and
Okay.
there's Gianluca. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
You want a scoop?
Yeah.
Okay.
So because of time, Gianluca, so the dive has to be off the bottom in just over an hour.
Okay.
So we're going to do the vibrocores first to prioritize that. And then if we have time, we will collect some scoops, however many we have time for.
Okay.
And if we have time, we can also get you some push calls.
Okay.
But for now, we've just got push
Yeah.
calls for the geology.
Yeah.
But hopefully, we can, because this went really smooth.
Okay, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that should be a problem.
No, it's way different than the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think those. that's the
Easy
work.
peasy lemon squeezy.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we've just moved, 15 kilometres maybe? But we're just, and similar water depth. We're
Yeah.
almost exactly the same water depth,
Yeah,
200 metres.
200. Then we're only 10 meters deeper.
So can we move to vibrocoring?
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Alright.
So how's the base of the vibrocore looking? Do you think we need to move, or is the gate sort of clear? So last time we moved, just
as much as it did.
not nearly as much before. Where can I just see that? I think if we do what we did before still, which was lifting up very slightly, getting the tube in position, and just projecting very slightly.
Okay.
And then lowering onto the seabed.
Okay.
So we sort of minimise what we lose, if you like. If that makes sense.
Alright, so when we grab it, we will have it a little higher than we did whenever we first grabbed the one we had, because that made that aspect didn't like that. Didn't do it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we'll put it in.
Is that okay? You
Yeah.
sort of comfortable with that? So this is really exciting, and it'll come into its own, we hope, offshore Chai 10, where the sediment may be coarser, so sandy, even gravelly sediment, and the vibrocore should be able to better penetrate those while preserving the sedimentary structures than coring methods that are just driven by gravity, for example. So what this does is this has a motor on it to vibrate the core tube as it is descending, and that sort of eases the passage of the core tube into the sediment.
What are we doing now?
We're going to start coring tubing.
So we already did the 2 push bars.
We did 3 push cores because they were such amazing push cores that we just couldn't stop.
And move it with the manipulator arm through into position on the vibrocore unit.
There's no valve on the first 2. There's valve on the 3rd one and the 5th one. So do you want to do a valve or no valve?
I think we go for one without a valve.
Okay, so it'll be the first
Becky,
2.
you happy with that?
Let's do one with
Yeah.
a valve just to test.
So what we're just talking about is some of these tubes, you can see one just there, has a white valve on the top, but you can also use these without the valve. What we found on the dive this morning, or earlier today, where we used the valve, was that we were compressing the sediment quite a lot. So we thought we'd gone in 1.5 meters, but when we cut the core, we found we maybe had about half of that in terms of the sediment. So there was quite a lot of compression, potentially due to the sort of resistance of the water coming through that valve at the top. So we're going to try one here with and without the valve, ideally, to see if we can identify a difference here. Because really we'd like to minimize that compression, make sure it's as easy as possible for that sediment to go into the core. When that sediment's coming in, it also has to squeeze past a core catcher at the bottom, which is designed to stop that material falling out again at the end of the coring, when you remove the core from the seabed. So all of this and the valve create some resistance. So we'll see how things work on this dive when we recover this.
I'll grab it just probably just above the. You grab it just above the black thing you just removed. You should just above it. You should be able to get it clear at the bottom without it being Alright, you got great yield right there. Great yield right there. Alright, come down just a little bit before you grab. Right there. Okay. Alright. Come straight up. Keep coming. Alright, pretty sure you're clear. So you can bring it up. Perfect. Yep, it's clear. You're completely out. Good job. Alright, now if you want to put it in.
Just pushing the more now?
No, you're gonna put it in the back.
Ah, right.
Yeah. I'll do the back part.
It's great. So we can see the tubes just coming across now towards the vibrocore. So it's
So,
South-
stand by, stand by.
Becky, is there
So
anything
you
you want to say
can
about
hear
the
us? Yep, there you go.
biology
Okay.
and the or what you're seeking to do on this with the samples?
Yes,
If
sure.
you look right here, see if you can just barely see it now?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I'm just Becky was one of the PIs on this expedition from University of Alabama. Just handing
Roll
over
Tide.
to Becky.
Yeah, okay. Yes, so the marine biology team is within itself very diverse and interdisciplinary because we have biologists who focus on the larger fauna called the macrofauna that live on the seafloor and in the seafloor or within the sediment. And we also have some that study including myself, the microfauna and the microflora, those that are living within the water column that actually produce food for the rest of the ocean. So we have a lot of phytoplankton that we've been sampling in the upper water. And when those phytoplankton die, they usually settle down to the seafloor. So we sometimes see the remnants of them on the seafloor. They can be eaten up by other organisms as well. And importantly, we can look for them when we take these long cores, just like this vibrocore here. So we can look at what's living on the seafloor, what's living right within the sediment, and then we can go even deeper with these long cores to see what used to live within the water. And a lot of the reason why we look into the past and see the past flora and fauna within the sediment below is because it's like pages of a book. So we have these layers that we've been looking at as we survey these areas. We're acoustically imaging the seafloor layers and the layers below the seafloor. And we can see that these layers go back in time. So you can read them just like a book, just like chapters in a book. And so as we look at these chapters, we may see that the microfauna, microflora, so the phytoplankton, and then all the little things that are eating it, and then all the big things, the macrofauna that are eating, are on that. One of the biggest controls in this area with large volcanoes just nearby and even some hydrothermal activity on the seafloor is, of course, the volcanism itself. So volcanoes can certainly bring nutrients and elements into the system that many organisms rely upon. Okay, so right now we're talking about this sediment core that we're collecting called a vibrocore. The reason it's called a vibrocore is because we vibrate the barrel, we attach it to a plate that vibrates. And when you vibrate that barrel, when you shake it really intensely, it actually creates a standing wave so that the sediments that we are hoping to penetrate and sample very deeply actually behave more like a fluid than like a solid. So we can actually send that core tube deeper than we normally would with just pushing it in. So vibrating it helps it actually go further and deeper. All right, so now we're gonna try to come back down. And it's muddy. Feels like we're in a sci-fi film.
We just moved a little bit to get the vibrocore into the. Well, it's in the coring position. but where we initially landed, we'd already disturbed the seabed a bit. We ideally want to come down with the vibrocores just slightly protruding so we can try to capture that very uppermost sediment, and then we'll push down deeper in a second. Oh, just a big fish there.
Yeah.
Two
So I'm
fish.
gonna let it clear, just make sure that I have an idea of what it's doing, open the clamp.
So currently in the room we've got Becky, who was just telling you about the marine geology, and then we've got a
And
student.
biology.
And biology. Lee here, and Jacob from Alabama.
Universidad de Chile in Santiago has great representation on this cruise.
Yeah.
One of our PIs being from there, Dr. Rodrigo Fernandez, who I actually did my PhD with at Rice. But he's brought several students to come and study the sediments here, and we're
Yeah,
all
more than-
learning a lot.
More than half the team from
Yeah.
More
More than half of our team is from Chile.
More than half the students as well, I think.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yep.
You wanna
So yeah, a lot of young scientists. A lot of these students, it's their first marine expedition. So this is really great in sort of training everyone with marine geoscience and biology.
Yeah. Yep.
Exciting opportunity for
Mhm.
everyone.
Yeah, and a lot of cultural exchange happening too. So yeah,
Okay,
I've
yes.
been learning a lot of
No, we should talk
Spanish
about that.
and eating some very typical candies from this area. What do you call it? The one that guaguitas, which means little babies. We had some of those to celebrate our successful course earlier. Yesterday. Was that earlier today? That was earlier today.
I've lost track.
I believe.
Yeah, I think it was last night actually.
Oh yeah, so it was celebrating CTDs then.
But yes, it's
The water
It's
sampling.
been a long couple of days getting into this
Yeah.
first stage of the expedition. That's always the way. A lot of sort of things to put together and sort of procedures. But I think we're getting a good routine. It's been a busy day, but exciting with the first two ROV dives. As Becky was saying, we've got a lot of engagement with. We've got a lot of Chilean students, but we actually have a lot of outreach planned on this expedition as well. Lots of links with schools in this region. This is quite a remote region of southern Chile. A lot of island communities, and we have a teacher on board from one of those island schools, a tiny school, and about halfway through we'll be anchoring offshore Chaiten town, and there'll be some groups from schools, from local schools visiting the ship, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and we're going to be celebrating the Chilean national holiday, September 18th.
18th of September.
But we
Yeah.
really celebrate all month. Yeah, it's a big deal. We have bongo drums and other instruments and lots of fun activities that we're all participating in. So
Almost
That's
the
it.
final day of the survey as well.
yeah, almost the final day of the survey,
Not
so we'll
quite.
have so much to celebrate all at once. We hope.
So we're just waiting for this to clear a little bit.
No, I'm trying to get the wrench to come up, but it catches on the clamp, so he's holding it so that I can bring the clamp up.
Okay, yeah.
The other thing that I'm noticing, Seb, is that the conditions are a little bit different here versus the last site, with a lot more oxygen at the bed, which kind of helps explain why we see so many more
There's so much more
benthic.
life on the sea.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's same water depth,
Yeah.
same fjord, but we're just south of the main river system of the fjord, the
Yep.
Palena River.
Yep.
So much more fresh water going into this. than where we were before. Yeah, I mean, we didn't see anything really living on the bottom the last site, right? Here, this is covered in sea urchins
Living on the
and-
bottom, no big macro fauna or
What's
larger
here?
organisms living on the bottom. But here we saw a bunch of echinoids, those pinkish looking
I mean,
things.
there's loads living in the water column on the last site.
Yeah, there was a lot. It was full in the water column.
But the seabed looks
Yeah.
surprisingly big.
Yeah.
I can back up and come down.
All right, now we're going down.
Go.
Vibrocore tube.
All right.
So you can see it's just a big metal straw. And
So we're using the same sort of motor intensity as we had previously.
We haven't used the motor at all. This is all just gravity going down.
Just gravity.
Yeah.
Okay. So we were using the motor at the first one, weren't we?
Mhm.
Yeah. Just gently, just try and sort of get some liquefaction around the tip of the core.
Okay. Would you want me to do that?
Yeah, could try. Good, I think, just to. Because the idea of the vibrocoring is to really preserve those structures as much as possible, so to ease the passage of the core tube through the sediment as much as we can. So even though it is soft here, we sort of don't particularly need that sort of power.
And so we're
Which should
still
help limit compression and help with preservation.
we're still in Reloncavi Fjord. Just moved 15 kilometers about from our last
So
site.
without the valve, can you also get the clamp a bit higher? Does that help you a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how you are nice with that.
So we found with the cores earlier, we got a lot of compaction, and I think we saw that with the push cores as well. Partly that's just because there's so much space in this sediment, so much water in there. They're very poorly consolidated. So as you push these cores in, they sort of squash together, and you inevitably compact the sediment to some extent. So we got someone in the chat just asking where we are. I see someone else has pointed to a description. But yeah, just for anyone who's just joined, we're in southern Chile, very near the shoreline. We're actually in a fjord called the Reloncavi Fjord. This fjord, it's an interesting shape, this fjord actually. Part of it is on a fault zone, a big regional fault zone, and we're just about on that fault zone. It's called the Liquiñe-Ofqui Fault. And this is a huge tectonic structure that runs right through this southern part of Chile. Lots of the volcanoes are situated on that fault or adjacent to that fault system. So the fjord has this big kink in it, and that's because the northern part is right along the fault. And then this second kink, sort of, which we're just entering, leads us out into the open sea. So we've been in this fjord since yesterday evening. We've been mapping the fjord, and collecting sub-bottom profiles, so we're imaging the seabed, and we're now sampling the sediment directly with the ROV and using this coring on the ROV.
And so, Seb, a lot of features that we see can be controlled by the tectonics of the region. Like faults can actually help in creating these valleys that the glaciers then
Absolutely. Yeah.
prefer and drain through, and then carve out these very characteristic U-shaped valleys that then later, after it's deglaciated, get filled up with water and become fjords, like
Yeah.
Reloncavi here.
Yeah, we're talking about sort of volcanic and climatic interactions here, but
Yeah.
of course there's tectonic interactions here as well.
Yeah,
If you look
over
at a
the-
map of this bit of southern Chile, it's crisscrossed by sort of really straight features. As Becky says, you've got glaciers that have sort of carved out valleys along these faults. You've got volcanoes where the magma has exploited that fault as a pathway to the surface. So we've got some big volcanoes, this one just south of where we are now called Yate volcano, and the one right next to Chaitén, actually, another volcano called Mincha. Both of those sit right on this fault zone.
All right, that is
Yeah, so over
all
longer
the way
time
down.
periods.
So So we
the
already-
tectonics have a huge impact
Grab down
on the
as
landscape
far below the top of the pipe,
and on climate.
down until we have more space.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, great.
All right.
So happy to come back out.
All right.
Great. So, I mean, as we found earlier on the dive, these vibrocores going in really, really smoothly and easily in the sediment, partly because it's so soft, such muddy sediment. I think that might be quite different later in the expedition when we get offshore Chai 10, particularly when we're right off these deltas that had all this pumice and ash feeding in after the 2008 eruption. We might see some quite different sediment properties, but really soft here. So did we had a bit of vibration for that second part? Stan?
Yeah, for
yeah,
I did
for the
vibration
deeper
of
parts.
the
Yeah.
last 3 times.
Yeah. So of course, you know, this is a really sort of novel method. First time on this ROV, first time for SOI, so on a science expedition. So part of this we're sort of learning as well, learning the best sort of recovery approaches. You know, I've mentioned that we've earlier, you can see here there's no valve on top of this. So we'll be able to do a bit of testing in terms of how this is affecting the retrieval of the sediment, particularly the preservation of the stratigraphy, which is really what we're interested in for everything Becky was talking about earlier. Preserving that sort of sequence of events and processes, understanding how these volcanic eruptions disturbed the environment, how that environment recovered from that disturbance. So we want those layers well preserved to explore all of that. The other thing we're keen to do later in the expedition, of course, is to go deeper back in time. You know, we may find the imprint of older volcanic eruptions that are not well known, maybe not in our records at all. And that's a way in which we can really better understand the long-term activity of these volcanoes, how often they've erupted, the size, the style of those eruptions. So as geologists, we're always sort of looking at those preserved layers from past events to help us understand these processes and also understand future behaviour.
Pretty sure that's I think that's the bottom right there. I'm pretty sure it's all the way down.
So it's very murky here as we're lifting up. A lot of sediment being disturbed again. It's quite hard to see. We've got the core tube just coming up. So this is great for the people we've got here when we're trying to look at the seabed biology and record what we're seeing. It's all a bit
Yeah.
obscure at the minute.
Yeah.
Should clear again, hopefully.
They had a task a minute ago trying to log everything that they were seeing and also include, you know, there's some uncertainty when you look at these images. There might be a couple possibilities and we need to look a little bit closer to be able to determine what species they are. But it's very diverse, as you can see. There's a lot of things to log.
Happy? All right, we'll open. There we go.
So fully out, and we've got the tube here. So this is an aluminium core liner.
There's your view from the top, and then we'll bring this out.
And it's just being lifted up. So in the bottom of this you can't see, but there's a core catcher which is just sort of a, I don't know, it's like an inverted sort of cup shape that stops the sediment slipping back out.
With teeth.
With teeth, exactly, yeah. It's sort of a sprung. Yeah, it's a bit hard to describe.
Yeah.
Do you have a better way of describing it?
Well, okay, so yeah, it's kind of like a cone at the bottom of the core that we just kind of screw in. In this case, it's metal. It could be plastic at times, but you have all of these little teeth in it that go up into the core. And so when you take that metal straw, that metal core barrel that they're lifting up right now, and you push it into the sediment, the teeth open, and so you can fill it with sediment as you're pushing it down and pushing sediment into it. But then when you pull up, the teeth catch the sediment.
Spring back.
Yeah, so
It's
that's
like a one-way valve.
yeah, it's like a one-way valve. So that's,
Yeah.
but that's why we call it a core catcher. And a lot of times we'll have sediment right there on the core catcher, and that tells us about oftentimes why the core stopped where it did if it's not completely full.
Yeah, so it might stop at
Yeah.
a hard layer, sandy layer,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Here it's pretty muddy. You can see the mud on the outside of the core barrel here, right? All that
Yeah.
sort of- yeah.
So ideally,
Sticky
we
mud.
get completely full core barrels here because it's just this soft, kind of a little bit soupy mud here. But part of the reason we have been testing this core, right, Seb, is that if you have something stopping the water from coming out on the top, then
Yeah.
that can keep it from filling up with sediment because that
Yeah.
water takes up space.
So even the core catcher provides some resistance as well. And
Yep.
I think with the valve on the top as well, you know,
Yeah.
that potentially inhibits sort of, doesn't necessarily inhibit filling it, but it might compress that.
Right.
Yeah.
And we want to minimize that compression, that deformation.
Yeah.
If we're compressing our sediment, we're kind of compressing our book that
Mhm.
Becky was talking about, and making it a bit harder to
Yeah.
read those pages.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yep.
basically squeezing your resolution. So
Mhm.
if we can minimize that, then it's better.
Yeah. And also, if we can preserve those sediment layers, those pages of the book as they naturally are, the thicknesses that they naturally are, then that helps us understand the rates at which the sediments are coming to this area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So seeing a tricky bit of the operation here, which is getting the core
Good there.
back on the rack. So really sort of you can see the manipulation here with the arm to get it in.
There you go.
And then you-
Still at the top of it.
Particularly tricky with this visibility.
Not quite yet. Push.
I guess I should just comment
To the left.
on behalf of Seb how excited he was this morning when we got our first vibrocore, because he started working on this idea about 5 years ago, and this is
working on it, I
sometimes
think,
how
6
long it
years.
takes. Yeah, 6 years
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, as I say, this is the first time Schmidt Ocean Institute have used this vibrocore on a science project, and this, you know, this is a novel technology. And we originally proposed a project actually to use this on a volcanic landslide offshore an island in Papua New Guinea, a submarine landslide. Difficult, very difficult to sample with other coring methods because of the coarseness of the sediment.
He's snapped in the top. You can't see the bottom. He's frozen, so the arm won't move. It's going to come off the seabed a little bit, see if we get a little clearer.
Okay. Yeah. So do you think it's in the rack?
It's in the top rack. You can see right there.
Yeah.
We just want to make sure that it's at the bottom.
Yes, because you can't have the visibility. Yeah. So I'm sure as those watching online can see, the visibility is really challenging here. This morning was much clearer.
Yeah.
And again, you know, that's probably a sign of the, you know, all the life we've got in this area. That sort of thick biological layer on the seabed that we're disturbed. You know, can't help disturb
Yeah.
the ROV down here. And but there we are. It looks good.
Oh, no, we go down, yeah.
So we can see
Alright, so
the core in the rack there, the dirty one, the one we just sampled. And then it has a little gate, that black gate, to sort of secure it in.
Oh, look at that Nadarian flying past us. Oh, sorry. I meant Tenaphore. The upper part of the screen.
What's that?
There was a
Oh,
little
you see-
Tenaphore.
Tenaphore.
Yeah.
So what's
Probably Nadarians too. Yeah, there's lots of things come flying through
a
here.
tenaphore?
Yeah. Yeah.
Say this out there.
They're so complex.
We're gonna get
That's
some
not what I do.
Get some
I-
biologists to come and talk
yeah,
about these.
yeah. I
what
study
we're seeing here.
diatoms and foraminifera. That's my comfort
What's that?
zone. What's that?
The diatoms.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So.
there's a lot of things we can't see on the ROV camera.
Yeah, so there's a
What
lot we
everybody's
can't
interested in.
see. So my student Jacob, he's just now started his master's at University of Alabama. I'm just gonna say Roll Tide every time we say University of Alabama. Roll Tide. Yeah. Okay, so he's just started his master's, and he's been looking at filtered samples from the Southern Ocean, offshore Antarctica, offshore the Dotson ice shelf. He's spent countless hours counting these diatoms and absolutely loves them, much like I do. And so he's very excited to see what we'll find within these fjords as well. So he was just saying he can't wait to see the diatoms here.
So that's a great thing about a project like this. We've got really diverse range of scientists.
Yeah.
With different interests, different research backgrounds, and we're all coming together on this project. We're all excited by the whole project. We're all excited about different elements of the
Yeah.
project that we'll all be working on.
Yeah.
So, and that's an exciting thing about a project like this. You know, I'm a volcanologist, but this is, you know, we're working here with oceanographers, marine biologists, marine geologists. You know, it's really exciting to bring everyone together in a project like this. And everyone's got their own ideas, and you sort of really broaden the aims of the science that you can achieve.
Yeah.
So we've had some pretty good questions here. Someone's saying hello to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jacob, do you want to say hi back?
Hey, hey, Dad.
Is that your dad?
Yeah.
Aw. We're all super proud of him. This is his first marine expedition. He's been doing great. Thinking
well,
ahead,
yeah,
staying prepared.
It's in. And you've closed the gate?
No, we haven't been
No.
since we can't see it.
Yeah, so you're just waiting. So, yeah.
I didn't want to let go of it and try to do it when we were.
No.
in
Yeah, it's
the water
great.
columns.
Yeah. So just come up a bit. Have we? No? Oh no, you're just waiting for it to clear. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
Pull through with my thrusters, but it's
Yeah.
very expensive.
So yeah, this it's all the sediment here that's causing this challenge with visibility. We want to close the gate on this first vibrocore so it's totally secure. Don't want it falling out, of course. But we need to be able to see what we're doing to close that gate.
Alright, you can barely see it over here in this one.
So yeah, we got a couple of good questions about volcanic eruptions in the cores. So yeah, every volcano has a sort of, well, I say a fingerprint, but chemically it has a sort of fingerprint that we can use to track individual volcanoes, even individual eruptions. So in this fjord sits between a volcano called Calbuco and a volcano called Yate. And then we got other nearby volcanoes which might also have deposited ash in this core as well. So potentially we've got several volcanoes that could have either fed sediment into this fjord by stuff coming through river systems, or directly by ash falling out of the atmosphere after an explosive eruption. So potentially you've got a complex set of volcanic sources. And one of the jobs of a volcanologist who's interested in reconstructing the past activity of individual volcanoes is to disentangle all of that. So to sort of pull that apart and recognize which deposit is from which volcano. If you can do that, you can correlate them across different sites and understand their size, their chemistry, and so on, how that volcano's changed through time. So to do that, we principally use chemical methods, looking at the composition, so the detailed chemical composition of these volcanic rocks, of the magma that fed these eruptions. Now all of these volcanoes are sort of broadly similar in that they're all subduction zone volcanoes, but they will all have sort of slightly distinct chemical trends that they sit along related to the magma that is feeding these volcanoes coming out of the mantle. So if that volcano is studied in terms of sort of the products that you know are definitely from that volcano, then you can characterize its chemistry, and then you can correlate in deposits from elsewhere where you might not be certain where they're from. Now, it's not just the chemistry you use, you can also use physical parameters, so the thickness of those deposits, their grain properties, their visual appearance even. What deposits should look like from individual volcanoes in terms of their distance, and in terms of how they get thinner further away from the volcano, or if we know something about the wind transport direction. So we can use all of this information to help piece together the sort of volcanic deposits and come up with an interpretation for where these are from. And that's really the method we use to reconstruct event histories of these volcanoes.
So how do we date those events?
So, dating, well, yeah, it depends on the timescales over which you're looking, I guess. If you're in a window of 40, 50,000 years, then you could use radiocarbon dating. You can find suitable organic material to date. So I've done in this region quite a lot of on-land field work, looking at things like road cuttings, so where you have sort of soil sequences and you get volcanic layers preserved in those. And that was mainly looking at events in the last 15,000 years, and radiocarbon dating is the method we were using there. But of course, other dating methods are also for even younger stuff, actually. It could give high resolution.
Yeah.
And then going back in time, we have to look at other geological dating techniques.
Yeah, so like back in time, volcanic events are so useful to us geologists because we can oftentimes correlate them and date them using radioactive elements within those deposits.
I mean, a big volcanic eruption is a dating method in itself. Even if you don't know the precise age, it is a time marker.
Yeah.
So it's a big explosive eruption like that in Chai-10. The Chai-10 ash went all the way out into the Atlantic Ocean, so you will get a layer of ash that if you can identify, let's say you can identify the Chai-10 layer in the Pacific and the Atlantic, you would know that was the same point in time. Even if you didn't know the precise age at that point, you would know it was an equivalent horizon, which is really valuable for geological reconstructions, to get equivalent time markers. Now, you then try and date those to get an absolute age on those, and that absolute age may change through time as methods improve and things, but what doesn't change is the position and equivalency of that time marker.
It's a datum that we can use. Super useful.
So you can do this with volcanic deposits all the way into polar ice cores, deep marine sediment cores. So yeah, key marker layers in geological sequences, particularly a long way from these volcanoes where you may not have sort of other terrestrial sediment sources.
Yeah, for the Northern Americans in the room, a lot of people remember Mount St. Helens and just how far that ash spread after the eruption. And of course, just like what we're studying here, a lot of that ash, fell and then was incorporated into river systems and went out into marine basins like the Gulf of Mexico, for example. And that, again, can be used as a precise age marker.
I'm going to move forward.
But when we look closer in time, like Seb was saying, we use carbon dating. And one of the things we just did this morning was take cores where we can look at the very superficial organisms and stain the living tissue so we know what's actually living there today. And we'll radiocarbon date those living organisms in this basin so we can calibrate the carbon when we date samples in the sediment record when we go farther back in time. So what we're using for that is...
in the rack and secure, is it? Yeah. So we're just moving a bit to get some clarity. Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
So what we're using for that calibration are these
No,
marine
I mean,
zooplankton
obviously we don't
called
want them far apart
foraminifera.
because the sediment will change slightly, but move 2, 3, 5 meters. That's fine. And of course, we have a record of that anyway with the ship, with the ROV track.
Let's see if we can find something a little less.
So hopefully we will find some of these critters in the samples that we can date that are living today, so that when we see them farther back in these chapters of the book and the sediment that we are sampling below the seabed, we can date that even more carefully with more certainty in how we should
Push
calibrate
course went
them.
very, very smoothly. Yeah. And the visibility was all right then, but we've kicked up so much stuff here now.
There's no current, so it's not going anywhere,
Yeah. Yeah, it was nice and clear when the push cores were going in, but this is, just disturbed everything. So how far are you moving, Zach?
So what is that? 126 stuff. Move to the left. That's looking a little better.
So we have somebody who's curious about how we process the cores when we bring them up. I had to take off my jacket before I came in here because there's mud all over it, as did quite a few of us. So actually Seb and I were the fearless leader was also getting muddy along with the students processing the cores after they came on board.
We've been discussing a lot the protocol, haven't we, and the procedures for doing this. There's not, there's not always necessarily obviously there's methods that we've learned from past techniques, but every course is a bit different. Every cruise or scientific project's a bit different, so you have to
And this one's really different.
adjust those methods accordingly. So, I mean, the cores we collected earlier, we haven't opened vibrocores rights yet. We have sealed them.
We've sealed the vibrocores.
We'll probably split one of those tomorrow, which is going to be exciting.
Yeah, and I brought my special scissor cutter. It's like a sheet metal cutter that should limit how much debris it makes when we open it.
But
so we're going to test some things.
At least half of these we're going to keep intact until we can take them off the ship. So we're going to store them in cold conditions and then keep them intact, because there's all sorts of scanning techniques you can use to see what's inside the core. In fact, even before you split the core.
Yep.
And we can't do all of that on board, but we do want to split some of them on board because it's really informative for our planning to understand what we're getting, and very helpful to start that sampling process on board.
Yep. So we've already taken samples from the push cores. So one of the things we just sampled was what we were talking about. So we use carbon dating to date sediment that's younger than 50,000 years old, which these sediments are younger than that, of course. We can also use short-lived isotopes like lead-210 and cesium. So when they were doing atomic bomb testing in the 60s, another 10-4. Look at that. Wow, that's a pretty big one.
Nice.
We just, little wave
That's
pool
good.
there on the
Yeah,
bottom
big
for
clear.
these guys.
So number 2, should we get the one without a faulty? What do you think?
That seemed to work pretty well.
I
We'll
think
see
let's
how
go
it
without the
goes.
valve
Yeah.
and see. It lets us go a bit deeper as well. So obviously we don't want to overtop of it.
You know which one you're going for there? Or do you need to look up? I need to look up. Alright, so it looks like the second one from the back doesn't have a valve, and neither of the front two do either.
Yeah,
So
number
could be
2
number
is
2 or number 4.
So the atomic bomb testing in the 60s
So we're going to choose
actually.
number 2.
Oh, sorry.
Which is number 1 is the one furthest out from the ROV. Number 2 is the next one in, obviously. So we're just going to open that gate and pull it out from its rack. You've got this sediment coming in again to obscure things a bit. Another jelly doing it.
Yeah.
That's a really good question about what the mud actually is here.
Yeah.
It's not all volcanic ash. I think there's likely a strong volcanic sediment source in there, so it's a mix, I expect, like you suggest. We did see a bit of structure even in the bush cores earlier.
Yep.
I mean, this was just 15-20 centimetres, but you could see some layering in there. I'd expect a sediment signature from the Calbuco 2015 eruption in
Yeah.
the most part. Below that, previous eruptions at Calbuco, largish one back in the 60s, 1960s. So, I mean, Calbuco's erupted pretty frequently in the last couple of centuries and probably prior to that. So, quite a persistent source of sediment. But where we are right now, we've got big river systems coming in from the south. So we've got plenty of other terrestrial sediment coming in, a lot of organic.
Yeah.
material coming into the
And so
sediment.
on that note, the eruptions of the 1960s, a great dating technique is using these basically products of the atomic bombs that they were testing. And so 1963, 1967, we have these peaks in cesium-137 that we see all around the global ocean. So I didn't want to leave that one hanging because it's kind of an awkward thing to start and not finish explaining. But that's another thing that we use to date the recent sediments. And so that would be very helpful if we saw an ash that we suspected was of that age. From the 1960s, we could use the short-lived isotopes that have really, really short half-lives to absolute date those sediments. So we have cesium-137, like I was talking about, that created a spike when we did the atomic bomb testing. And then we also have lead-210, which has a half-life of 10 years. So we can usually go back about 10 half-lives. So go back about 100 years with lead-210. And then beyond that, you have to use carbon dating, which people are more familiar with because we use that for dating artifacts and archaeological things, cultural artifacts, things like that. So it goes back about 40, 50,000 years, like we were saying. So the half-life of radiocarbon is a little over 5,000 years, like 5,300 years. So one of the most important activities that we did today was subsample one of these push cores for all of those different dating techniques. For the radiocarbon, especially looking at those critters at the surface that we can use to calibrate the radiocarbon record in the core, and also sampling sediment that we can then analyze for lead-210 and cesium to see where those dates occur in the sediment record.
So still proving pretty challenging to see stuff here. But you can see they've taken core number 2 off the rack, just moving it around to push it onto the vibrocore clamp. Which is tricky again, given the visibility. So just getting that core tube onto the vibrocore, delicate operation, as you can see. I think it's on there. had a few more people come into the room. We've got
V6. VC006.
Whoa. Okay. All right. You want to see if we can get a little more?
if possible, yeah, please. That would be great. So you know, you could, anyone watching that can see that one very, very easily. You could see the sort of slight vibration of the coring device as that was inserted into the sediment. Now, because that device is down in the seabed, we need to move the clamp up the tube, so the tube should stay in position. And then we move the clamp up. Here you're lifting out. There we are, so you can see the tube staying there. We're lifting up the device to clamp near the top. So we just want to clamp fairly near the top, but not, not right to the top. And then we'll be able to push this this core a little bit further into the sediment, maximise the extent of time that we can recover. So we should see it going down again in a second. Exactly, just want to stop a little bit above the sea bed, obviously. The sun is, as you feel comfortable going in the clamp.
See, it's vibrating. That helps it penetrate deeper.
Okay.
You happy with that? Stop there? Yeah. Okay, so that's vibrocore number 2. Yeah, please, yeah, we can pull that out.
Which will be B. Right? Sam? VC006B.
VC006B. Yes.
Good.
So we're just talking about our sort of coding, nomenclature for the sampling. Something that's really important, really key to keep track of. Every sample we take is dependent on getting that accurate sample ID.
It shouldn't fall. It's still in there really far, You got every time. All right. Good.
So yeah, I was just saying we've a few more people into the room. We've got someone from the University of Playa Ancha in Valparaiso, Chile. We've got someone from Seneca-Min, the Chilean Geological Survey.
Constanza.
And we've got someone from the from Massey University of New Zealand. So representation from right around the world. That's it.
Yeah, and all different nationalities. This cruise. A lot of different languages we've been speaking.
Don't forget to grab it. I think it's out of there. You can grab a glove too if you want to have a glove, right? Or easy.
Decided which is easier to put in there. Well, lower seam better. Okay.
Opening. Happy? It's open.
So you can see we just transferred the vibrocore number 2 on this dive from the coring device onto the manipulator arm, which is now going to carry it back round onto the rack
I can just go straight up where it's clear if you need to see better.
to put it back into position number 2, which is where we lifted it from.
And this is the tricky part.
Right, Nikki, time we've got not long before the end of this dive, so we did talk about over the third.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Right.
Yeah.
What are you thinking? Would you like to try with a valve?
I think it would be great to try and fit them with the valve on.
Try with a valve and see, so we can really test this methodology.
Yeah.
See if we get a difference.
Yeah.
the compaction is only informative. Yeah,
This would be a great place to try it
yeah.
because
So you're basically replicating the same sample and just changing the value.
yeah.
To see if it's causing compaction. Okay.
And for me to
And what
pass
do
it
you
off, and,
Yeah, I'm happy to do that if we've got time. We've got the core plug.
Okay. Or we could fly to another site if you wanted, like
No, no,
nearby. Yeah, it's at 6:30. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, we have awesome pilots, awesome ROV pilots, highly experienced.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, this is really really tricky.
Yeah. Take these off for a minute.
yeah, put it down.
Yeah, you have to see how careful they need to be with their hands. So they're manipulating the, I guess, I don't know what you call it other than a joystick. It has several different components that manipulate that arm. If they do anything too quickly or too rough, then it could cause issues for the whole operation. So they're working slowly, carefully, communicating with each other.
Shoot up, get out of this.
Used to doing the holster first, then you tap it in.
And again, this is the first cruise in which Schmidt Ocean Institute has deployed this vibrocoring system. So we feel very, very lucky. But it's also a learning curve, I think, for all of us to see what works
There we
well
are.
and what doesn't.
See it getting in the holster at the base, pushing it onto the rack.
Oh, nice.
Delicate operation. Now Zach,
Oh.
And now we've lost visibility. Flying blind.
Autos, huh?
These pilots have their instrument rating.
Zach, would we have time for a third flight with the barrage as a test?
We can go for it, we got 8 minutes.
Sure. You're happy to. You're happy to. I just think it would be a great site
We might
to
have to give up part way though, you okay with that? Probably. Up to you.
Yeah, I think if you're happy to go for it, it's been pretty quick, hasn't it? It's the visibility that's the challenge, of course. But yeah, I think it would really help us understand how these valves affecting the recovery from the compaction.
Start prepping.
Sure. You go with that view? Looking for a clear spot.
I'm not as familiar with So we're trying to get just the right core barrel after this.
First, turn these as if you're tightening.
Oh, blah, blah. What was that?
When I turn up the headway, it's loosened so much that it would just lock closed.
Oh, because it actually does tighten it.
Yeah.
I think I got you.
We went through on this, on deck, and retightened it with it. And just as a precaution.
No, just for the
You get an impression of how much sediment's already already on there. You see all that sediment coming off? We just took that core off the rack.
Yeah.
You've already got sediment coming into that.
Yes.
Sediment
Yes.
just from the turbine.
Yeah.
It's just good to be aware of that.
Yeah, that it's gonna be in the barrel before
Yeah.
we start coring.
Yeah, yeah. So as Becky was saying, we're still sort of getting familiar with the best techniques here, the best setup. So what we're seeking to do here is test another core, but one with a valve on top, which is designed to sort of help contain. See how soft the mud is there.
Should we ask Rodrigo about gonna be over? Yeah. So we need to gather everybody up to sample.
Yeah, when it's back on day. Yeah, absolutely.
And then are we gonna collect a water sample on the way up?
Yeah, I think so. I think I want to put up 5 minutes. So
Yeah. So if this doesn't go,
this doesn't go in it. It's
yeah.
sample.
Yeah.
He was ambitious in one of the units.
It was ambitious.
So then all the operations.
All of them. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I did think we get 2 dumps today, so
Yeah.
that's great.
Pretty good for our first day of ROV ops.
All the way down, clamp. All right, and gate is open, and I'm ready to go down when you are.
We moved slightly, Zach, from the last place, didn't we? Because we did move from the last place, didn't we? Because we left it up, right? Yeah, so
I had to go find out.
Yeah, you had to find some clear space.
Point in the,
Yeah.
so we could see, you know.
God, they go in quick. That's, yeah, so going really easily in this soft seafloor sediment here.
Here we go. Here we go.
May father.
There you can
Okay.
see the white valve on top in this one.
I'm going to
So
open
we're
the clamp.
going to be able to compare directly the compaction in this one compared to the one without the valve on top. So we can work out sort of the pros and cons of the 2 approaches. Make that decision before we go ahead with the rest of the expedition and future dives.
Nice. That's it.
So you see the core staying stuck in the sediment. We're lifting up the vibrocore device, clamp back on, and then go down for the second half.
Come on, man.
Break out that last carbon
Okay.
Right. It's going down very nicely.
Okay, so we're into the maximum extent. You're pulling back out. So we log that, Jacob?
VC.
All the way back out. That's number C?
C.
Yeah. 006C.
Yes. VC 006.
And that's going into direct position 3.
Yeah.
Cool. Brilliant. That's pretty good on
I
a
think-
shortish dive.
Oh yeah.
3 vocals.
Yeah. 3 successful
20
push
opening?
cores, at least 2 successful vibrocores.
Don't need them all. Don't even need them all.
I did. It was already there.
Can name it. Okie dokie.
Very smooth.
Boy, we sure got this thing dirty.
I'm waiting until this finishes. I need to charge my phone and charge myself.
So you already get a sense of how soft the seafloor is there. You can see how the
Yeah,
base of the
no,
ROV is sat in the mud.
It definitely wasn't like that on our test spot. It
Really?
just falls right in there, you know? You
Yeah,
almost,
yeah.
It almost seems like if you just drop the core, it would go.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were testing it in sands?
Yeah, we couldn't get deeper than about that.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
all out
yeah.
even with vibration.
Yeah, I mean we'll see later in the cruise.
You do. Deal.
So we got that third core lifted out, and that's going to be heading back to the rack now.
And if you want me to lift off again, just let me know.
Again, you can see all the mud on the outside from where it's gone down. You can see the other two already. It's all washed off the other two already. It'll wash off on the way up, so it'll come up looking pretty clean.
That's a nice view in that one, huh? See the top and the bottom there.
Closing on me.
Well, why is it closed? Whoop. Whoop.
Okay, moment of truth. Yes.
Nice one, Scott.
That's pretty sweet.
There we go.
3 for
Well done.
3. 3
Brilliant.
for 3.
Three very smooth vibrocores there.
Yeah.
Breathe now?
All kept. All
Yeah.
gone in perfectly.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
Hooray.
Excelente. Excelente.
Hey, we got this on the bottom.
Right on time. Off bottom. Thank you.
Awesome.
Becky, did you want to fire water off bottom?
Yeah, I think that's the next version, is we put a line where the client
You'd say now.
Here.
to where the.
If we fire another bottle and fire it towards the stern, are we gonna have time for a CTD after this?
Oh, we can do a CTD before we leave.
All right, you guys ready for this Niskin here?
Yeah, that's fine.
Go for it. Bonk.
Oh, it's gone. He's fired. It's fired
Yeah,
anyway. If
that's
you want.
fine.
Yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
testing
Okay.
it, so
Yeah,
it's
fine.
totally fine.
Okay, no problem.
How many meters off the bottom do we have?
That was 10.
10. Perfect.
And all.
So
Might have to send
That
Chris
was
message.
bottle 4.
yeah, but
Not sure.
Zach, was that 4 you just fired?
What's that?
Was that number 4 you just fired?
5 and 6.
It was 6. 5 and 6.
put it in.
Jacob, it was rack position 5 and 6 that went off there.
5.
5 and 6
It was
were
5
fired
and
there.
6.
Yeah.
Went ahead and emptied the mag there.
Yeah. Shorter dive, but we've got three dive points on it, so fantastic. So, yeah. Hey, which? And they didn't squash so much.
In the first part?
Yeah, different to the so yeah, they just sort of went smoothly, and you didn't get a sense that they compacted as much as the first.
Yeah, the course looked great. I mean, compared to the last side, just the amount of wording that we had and that soupy, difficult sediment to hear. We had pretty successful push forwards.
Brilliant.
Each on the first try, first push for each of them. They were perfect, and check out 3 vibrocores and back on the back very nicely. So
What's going on?
excited to look at them when they come up.
Chris is already on city.
Sorry,
And the person who's particularly excited is Gianluca, who's in the marine biology team with me, Universidad de Valparaiso, not to be confused with the University of Valparaiso. Yeah, and yeah, he was very excited that we captured some urchins in the top of those push cores. Yeah, so that'll be really cool for the benthic community analysis.
Yeah, this weight was pretty manageable. It's a lot better.
So you took,
10 minutes back up, and we're on 70 when we
how much weight did you take off, Zach?
Oh yeah, that's kind of partly holding myself up. Took off what are those, 50? Sorry.
So 100 kilos.
Oh, the lead?
25? 50? Honestly, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, but you just reduced the weight. Yeah,
And we
yeah.
put a float
25 and
on.
30.
Yeah.
And we put a float on.
My gym workout.
Oh yeah. Okay, Ben.
So we got a technical question there about the vibrocore design. Yeah, I think the team modified it to fit on Sebastian. Although I guess Zach, you're probably better placed to answer this question about modification of the vibrocore. The question saying, did the vibrocore have to be modified to be compatible with Sebastian?
No, because it was built to work with Sebastian. It's not, you can't like buy a vibrocore as far as I know off the shelf. So it's something our engineers
A
had to,
bespoke design.
Yeah, but they did base it off of Mbari's design. Mbari had one like this. So I think that was kind of their inspiration / basis.
Yeah.
The actual
You might be able to. It's a
vibrocore
very
Well, just the motor.
Yeah, that's
But that's all you
Just the which part?
the motors.
Oh, the motors. Yeah.
That's like construction.
But Jason designed and tested it like for how many? For how long has he been building it? 5 years?
Hold on.
The whole time. Yeah.
Hey, Chris, I got you.
Alright.
Just quit inking.
Should we go ahead and do the sign off?
Sure. I like your song. Hey, I'm gonna pass you control, okay?
I don't have the controller in my head just yet. You can turn it over.
Boo. Just turn it over.
I'll make sure I do the
Yeah, it was.
I mean, it's a good day.
It was. Yeah. 2 of those in a row would be a lot. I'm glad we're not doing those in a row. We gotta switch that clamp around though. That's gonna make me crazy.
clamp. Oh, the open close?
Yeah.
Yeah, that. Yeah.
I'm wrong
Yes.
every time I do that.
I was wrong twice, and it was almost bad.
Yeah.
And then I sat there staring at it for like 15 seconds before I did anything with it, just to make sure I was right.
And then you were still wrong, right?
No, I wasn't. I was just like,
That's what happened to me.
yeah.
I was like, this time I'm not gonna. Ah!
Have you seen the meme about USB plugs?
Oh, putting it in upside down.
Yeah, so there's like the meme is like the first time it's this.
All right. You heard the pilots and the bridge. That's ROV off bottom. We're gonna have a very short ascent back to the surface. We're only at around 120 meters right now, so it's gonna be super fast. So we will have to end the stream soon to proceed with recovery.
We were gonna come up bottom real fast, so yeah, that was recovery.
You can hear some of the pilots over the clearcom right now. But thank you all for an amazing first day of diving on this fire and ice, volcanic, and glacial interactions expedition. We had an amazing time learning about the geology of the various sediments here, and you're going to get a lot more the next few weeks, so stay tuned. And it's going to be a bit of a frenzy when we get back to the surface, but we're very excited to see what we'll find. And of course, stay tuned for more dives this week. Keep those subscription notifications on. Of course, share our stream with a friend. And always keep asking us questions. Your questions today were amazing, and we're all learning so much.
When you get near the surface, this last time was a little too exciting. I'll let you know.
All right, and pilots in the bridge are...
Just taking a look at the ADCP here.
That current was blowing from...
The pilots in the bridge are in full swing of recovery mode, so I'm gonna mute the stream now and end this stream shortly. Thank you all so much, and have a great night.
Moved ahead, that would kind of